we're about to embark on the concept of what is the leader's role and how they're evolving the day-to-day operations of an organization. It actually is really difficult to define what is leadership. There's a lot of books out there, but a lot of them all tend to be about, look at my style, what I did. They tend to be ego books rather than practical books that tell us how to go about doing that. And here is a reality. Each one of us is going to evolve our own style, and it's going to depend what our needs are and based upon our personality. I've seen leaders of every single make and style. I've seen those that are shy and introverted, but they make great leaders because they're good decision makers and they bring people together. On the other hand, I've seen those that talk an awful lot and they sound good, at least of themselves, but don't do anything when it comes to leadership. So the reality is you'll have these bounces, and just because somebody talks a good game doesn't mean they execute a good game. And sometimes if they don't talk at all, it doesn't mean that they're not a good leader. It means that they don't talk very much, but they really have the organization running like a well-oiled machine. Don't be deceived because of the fact that I believe that everybody can develop into being a good leader. Some of them develop faster, but I think all of us can actually do the whole process of actually leading other people. And the best way to check to see if your leader is, you look behind you, see if anybody's following. That's kind of an idea. So today, managers tend to be very collaborative. They talk to people. They emphasize teams and team building. They guide, train, support, motivate, and coach employees. It's very different than we had back in the 90s, 80s, 70s, and 60s. Back then, it was the person was the big champion leader. Now we've had a very big change, and the big change really comes down to information technology is advanced. Once upon a time, the leader had a clipboard, and we would read off the clipboard saying, yo, we're going to be doing this today, and this today, and this today, and so on. And the leader was the one that owned the information and distributed the information to the employees. No longer. The employees now have this thing out there, it's called a cell phone, and they have iPads and they have computers. We can talk to the employees en masse with those message devices, and that reduces that whole aspect of one person owning the information. Everybody owns the information. It's changed totally from being the 5 to 7 people reporting to one boss. Now you can really conceivably have 10 to 20 reporting to a boss and not miss a step if it's well done, if you have good information and good communication happening. And that's what you're seeing here. The leader needs to be a skilled communicator and a team player. They need to look big picture past just the organization they're in. How does it impact their entire service area? And sometimes the whole service area might be planet Earth. If you work for Elon Musk, it might be Earth and Mars too on top of that. We'll see. So empowering employees, instead of telling them, you must do the following steps, A, B, C, D, a lot of time you want to just sit down and give them the authority to actually go handle this and deal with this aspect over there. There's a book out there I encourage you to read called The 4-Hour Workweek. In the 4-Hour Workweek, I don't agree with the guy who wrote it, Timothy Ferriss. I don't agree with his morals because I'm not certain he has many. But the reality of it comes down to he had a company, and the company is a vitamin supplement company. So he was working 45 to 65 hours every week with this company because he felt, I need to sit down and empower the employees. He changed his entire structure. Now, the employees had the ability to give up to $100 in accommodation to a dissatisfied customer. Well, at first, the profits plunged. And then after 3 months, they kind of stabilized. And then after that, all of a sudden, people started buying things more and more because they knew no matter what happened, if they bought that product, they would have the support, and the employees liked it, and morale went skyrocketing. And he worked less hours to the point where he wrote a book about the 4-hour work week. He empowered his employees to be much more available to sit down there and deal with the customer on the other end of the phone, to give them maximize the ability. If you bought a $23 bottle of vitamins and it didn't work, by the way, I'm going to send you 3 different ones. I'm going to send you those vitamins. You know what? I have this other one that's kind of like it. I want you to try it out, but it's going to be free on us. Whoa, that's kind of a nice deal. I would like that in the process. So when you empower employees, things can sit down there and be much better if you know what you're doing and if you follow the 4 rules, the 4 duties of leadership. We'll talk about that right over here. There's planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. We're going to talk about them in detail in this chapter. Planning, you want to set the goals, develop strategies to reach the goals, and then make certain you have the resources, lead, guide, and motivate employees to work effectively, get them working on a team as a project, and we'll talk about different tactics, how to go about doing that. Give assignments, explain the routine. Probably the most important training a leader can give employees isn't the training a year out or 2 years out. It really is called orientation. Tell them what you expect. Go over the job description. Take the first 3 months and spend a lot of times with all your new employees, show them all the ropes, making certain that they don't have any questions unanswered. And if you don't know the answers, go find it for them. That's part of leading, organizing, allocating the resources to make certain these people called employees, they have that to get their job done. Prepare a structure, show lines of authority. If you don't want people running around, running to the president and going over the top of you, you may want to tell them that and say, by the way, if you do that, I'm going to sit down and do this to you. So tell them what you expect them to do, and then expect them to do it. And if they don't, they better have a reason why they didn't do what you expected. And if they're not, you need to correct them and move it back. That's called controlling. Measure the results against the objectives, measure the performance relative to the standards you're expecting, and the reward outstanding, and take corrective action when it's not appropriate. So these are the 4 things that we really do. Let's talk about planning first. It really sits down when you sit down and look at some of the different things. It's interesting when we had COVID and it really hit the world, and especially here in the United States. That being said, it's interesting. A lot of restaurants totally died during that whole process. A lot of them totally thrived. Some died, some thrived. I'm not certain what the difference was. I have a friend of mine who actually opened up a restaurant in 2014 in the food truck, and a year later he's got a restaurant. And then in the middle of COVID, he opened up a brand new one, and he was successful until now. After COVID and everything else, he had 7 restaurants really in that from 2014 to 2021, with several opening during COVID because he knew how to sit down and plan well for his customers for carry out, eat in, and meet all the different requirements. It was a great planning tool, but man, he's a good entrepreneur because he really planned well and success because he had a vision as to what he wanted to accomplish. And then he took that vision, he broke it down into achievable goals in the organization with a timeline. And then he took those goals and chopped them up into pieces further called objectives. Goals, objectives, and usually objectives are short term, usually 1 year or less, things that you want to actually accomplish to reach those goals that will fulfill the overall vision of it. A mission statement. This is even broader a lot of times than a vision. Your vision a lot of times is 1 sentence or 2 sentences, maybe 3, and it kind of outlines the philosophical basis. And a mission has more different concepts in it. It still is broad in scope. It talks about the self-concept, the philosophy, how you plan on serving the public that you serve, and really the idea of actually going through and fulfilling, this is what we want to do, this is what we feel our customers out there, our social responsibility, the nature of the product and service. And a lot of times we have a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses. Okay, you do that internally, then you look outside the organization as to what opportunities and threats are there. So you look on that, and I'll talk about a little bit more in just a minute. Then how do you get to our goal from here? You want to look at the strategic, tactical, operational, and contingency planning. So we'll talk about those as well. So your SWOT matrix. Look at your core competencies. What are you really good at? Are you an acknowledged market lead? Or do you have a well-conceived functional area? Do you have good management? Do you have cost advantages over your competitors? Or do you have better advertising campaign? Sometimes, if you're doing an honest assessment, look at the weaknesses. Do you have a real big picture? Now, strategic, we talk strategic direction is really 3 years plus in planning. Where are you going to be 3 years from now? Do you know? Do you have plans where you want to be? And then do you have the different goals and objectives to get there? Do you have obsolete facilities? How's your profitability? Is it comparable to the market? Are you below that? Do you have a managerial talent that you have there to draw from for future leadership? Are you weak on that? How is your image out there to the public? And then is your product line meeting the needs of your customers? Are there other people in the same area with different products that may have more volume because of the fact that they're actually meeting the needs of the customers in all these multiple areas instead of you're just one? Then you look on opportunities. What is out there? Because you're looking now outside the organization. These 2 strengths and weaknesses, you're looking inside the organization. Opportunities and threats, SWOT, SWOT, opportunities, threats is what's outside the organization. Is there a chance you could serve a different customer group? Can you expand your product lines? What would that look like? Can you transfer skills and technology to new products that is already out there? Do you have new technology coming on board? Can you take advantage of artificial intelligence? Okay, are there falling barriers in foreign markets you can get into? Is there complacency at rival firms? I can get over here. Increase in market demand and threats. Foreign competitors, the same opportunities can be the same threats too. Foreign competitors, substitute products, cheap products, not made very well, and give you hives if you sit there and take them or to use them, but they're not, people don't know the difference. You may have to explain that. Slower growth, regulatory changes, business cycles, and then changing buyers' needs and tastes. That's a big thing. Pay attention to what's going on inside the organization and outside the organization, and then try to maximize them to sit down there and have your company be the leader. Core functions in management, we'll talk a lot more in this chapter. Planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Vision, big picture. Mission takes the big picture and breaks it down further. And then your goals, what you're going to be doing, and then your objectives. And it's interesting, and we'll talk more about this again. A lot of CEOs, 74% of them, come from inside the organization. If you stick around, you too can be the boss someday, and an awful lot of companies that we have in the United States and actually around the world. Take care.